make sure we're on. I mean, are we on?
Think so. Let me see. Let me get the notification.
I don't see no notification yet. But yesterday, I kept going on and in Rumble. I think we're on right now. I think we're on.
Does it say streaming?
Yeah, stream. It says streaming. It says it, but yesterday it said it too.
It sounds like it's a notification. Let's just go
Hold
into
on
it.
for a minute. Got a lot to talk about. I think we're on.
Let's do it.
Let's do it.
Yeah.
So, happy Valentine's Day,
Valentine's.
Rob and Mia. You got Mia down there. I see today. You got her down there. Oh, she's getting bigger, man.
Yeah, she's getting chunk. You're a chunk.
Her teeth seem to get a little more out of her mouth too.
Well, she finally has teeth now.
Oh yeah, and she's showing them too. Anyway, inflation is up. We've been talking about it, and inflation came in boiling hot today too. And before I actually go into that, I want to share something with you from a guy named John Rubino. And John says that we're in a debt and death spiral, and that it's going to force dramatic changes on the world. And he goes on, yeah, there we go. And he says, and he explains, he says that this debt spiral is part of the means of things from here and continue to get worse and worse for the big currencies of the world until they finally die. And we've been warning you and telling you guys about this. I almost feel like I'm a doomsday clock, Rob.
Mm-hmm.
The doomsday clock, because I keep telling people prepare, prepare, prepare. Well, guess what? Russia's prepared. They're all preparing, and they're preparing for a World War III, the likes of what I see out there. So, in other words, until people lose faith in them and refuse to use them, talking about currency, and hold them anymore until their face value falls to in strength value, which is zero, that manifests to what I call hyperinflation. And John is saying hyperinflation as well. And remember, I said that this is what they do. This is what governments do. This is what countries do, is they create and they manufacture inflation, right? Because it leads to hyperinflation. And the value of the currency falls as opposed to things that you actually buy with it. So in other words, the value of your currency is weaker because the price of the goods become higher. And things feel basically okay for a long time as long as governments could force interest rates down to really low levels. Well, the side effects of that are massive money creation, and then eventually it's a thing called inflation. So what do I say? They create inflation. It's a way for them to help them to appreciate the debt, but along the way they destroy the value of the dollar. And this is what John is talking about. And that's what we're dealing with right now. So here we go. Welcome to the end game for the world's biggest currencies. And he also goes on to say that things have gotten so out of control that there is no stopping what is coming. And he says that we're in a part of the cycle now where things just get worse and there's nothing that we can do about it. I've been reading things like CBDC is coming and there's not a thing you can do about it. Well, he's right. And this is what I've been saying as well. So we're a part of this cycle now where things just keep getting worse. And there's nothing we can do about it. And you're going to see companies that have borrowed huge amount of monies. They're going to have to go and to have to borrow these huge amount of monies just to buy back their stock. And now they see interest rate costs explode. And governments around the world now have the same problem, and there's nothing central banks can do about this at all. And the next step, or the next stage of this, is where and when everybody realizes that there is no fix. So daddy's not going to come home and take care of all of this, right? So and there's no adult supervision. And the financial markets, well, they're just basically on their own with so much debt that there's nothing left for them to do. So you either have mass bankruptcies, which we're already starting to see lots of big bankruptcies are coming. There was just another one. It was just one being announced, a big bankruptcy. I can't remember who it is. I just read about it, which is it's big, and you'll hear about more of it. But you'll have mass bankruptcies or inflate away the currencies of the world, and we're there finally. 2023, the year that we're in right now, is going to be an amazing year. And we make the decision about what kind of crisis, that we're actually going to fall into. Or a Weimar Germany kind of hyperinflation that we've discussed in the past, which is what happens if we try to inflate our way out of the current debt problems. And that's it. This is something on the distant this isn't something on the distant horizon anymore, and it's something right here staring at us in the face. I've been saying this, that the purchasing power of the dollar is being destroyed right in front of your faces, and you're not even paying attention. And this is what he's talking about as well. So he thinks that the economy is so weak right now. In fact, he talks about the threat of global nuclear war and contends that our extreme financial problems will seem timid if nukes fly. And in the nuclear war scenario, the global population could cut in half with radiation and starvation. And he also talks about the ways to be more resilient. Because think about this. Those of you that are playing the stock market and you think you're doing so damn good, let me tell you something. If nukes start to fly, they start to fly by, guess what? There ain't no more stock market. There ain't no more stock market. There ain't no more currency. So this is what he's talking about. And he says to be more resilient. And that starts with shedding as much debt as you can. It also includes stocking up on food, water, and defensive investments like precious metals and some cash. And he thinks that the economy is so weak that with so many different financial bubbles, toils and troubles, and that's what this is, that one bubble pop could bring the entire system down rapidly. It's like a dominoes. You stack them up, and then they all gone down. They all fall down. So he says, look out for the big European banks to go insolvent as a warning sign of trouble if the trillion-dollar derivative complex blows up. He's right.
I mean, it's exactly.
It's what we've been saying now all along.
Yeah.
And today, ain't no surprise that the Biden economy, remember, those of you that voted for him voted to go broke because it's true. It's true.
Yeah.
The Biden economy, the inflation is up 6.4%, higher than we even expected.
Yeah.
Household budgets are stressed, strained, and broken, and it ain't going to get any better because earlier this morning, an analyst on CNN warned again about inflation in areas that impact households and their costs. And Greg McBride, chief financialist at Bankrupt, shared this. He said, household budgets have really been stretched, strained, and broken over the course of the past couple of years because of the consistent increase in prices. But because it's also been pronounced in those categories that are necessary. So, I mean, this is what we've been talking about. And today's results were exactly what McBride warned about. Inflation, as measured by the CPI, is up by 0.5% in January. And this is very disappointing as analysts were projecting a lower rate. So get ready because the Feds are going to have to keep on raising them rates.
And this guy from, you know, what I'm noticing, and this is just like off topic real quick, is what I'm noticing is that CNN, CNBC, ABC, all these liberal media sites, including Fox,
even MNSBC, what the hell their numbers are, I don't know.
All the liberal sites. I even consider Fox Business and Fox News to be very liberal. They're all saying that we're going into a depression, we're going into a recession, and these are the ones that distract you away from that. But they're all, and this guy that you just quoted from CNBC this morning, it hits home because you know myself, Ashley, she's a top 2% income earner, right? And she's even feeling it. We're even feeling it at our household, right?
Everybody is.
And you know,
don't matter.
She does very, very well for herself.
Don't matter. If you make, it don't matter. People that are making $100,000 a month, they're feeling it. I'm telling you, people are feeling this. And let me tell you something. The cost of items that affect families the most are way up under Biden.
You know what my water bill was or my electric bill?
Oh, mine was ridiculous.
$375 just for my electric.
Yeah, I believe you. Yeah, mine's that every month.
I've been.
And I live in a condo.
I've been prepping Ashley. Like, hey, listen, this is going to happen. Don't be surprised. She's like, what the hell is going on with our electric bill? I'm like, I told you, inflation. Congratulations.
You know who's really feeling it too? Are these restaurants. Because people are seeing in their grocery bills and when dining out that there's no hiding this. There's no hiding it. But Biden, let's see if Biden comes out and totes about his inflation today.
Yeah.
I guarantee you he's not going to say nothing about it today. It'd be egg in the face. He's already got egg in his fucking face.
Yeah.
Excuse my language, but I get pissed off when I know that, you know, everything that we've been telling you for so long, it's happening.
Yeah.
And it's been happening. But then you've got idiots like, you know, that don't want you to know the truth. Let me tell you what CNBC reported moments ago, just moments ago.
Okay.
Inflation turned higher to start 2023. A rising shelter, gas, and fuel prices took their toll on consumers, the Labor Department reported today. And the Consumer Price Index, which measures a broad basket of common goods and services. So you can't scam these numbers.
Right.
This isn't the Labor Bureau of Statistics. This ain't jobs report. You can't scam these numbers. These are real numbers.
Yep.
So the Consumer Price Index, which measures this broad basket of common goods and services, and remember, this isn't even counting some things. This is just, it rose 0.5% in January, which translated to an annual gain of 6.4%. So economists surveyed by Dow Jones had been looking for respective increases of 0.4% and 6.2%. So it went way over those numbers that they were expecting.
And one thing they're not.
And this is excluding volatile food and energy. This isn't even including your food and your energy.
Add another 6% to that.
We're the numbers. I think that the real numbers now we're at about 21%, if not a little more than 21% on total inflation. The real numbers. At least. And so, you know, let me tell you something. If you exclude like the food and energy, the core CPI increased 0.4% monthly and 5% or 5.6% from a year ago against their respective estimates of 0.3 and 5.5. So Biden's policies of massive spending and shutting down industries like energy sectors, they are destroying us Americans and our American savings.
When you think about the first thing this guy did when he entered office was shut down the Keystone Pipeline and the other couple of pipelines that he shut down. Why in the world would you do that? Why in the world would you not plan 10 steps or 20 steps ahead? Fast forward when he did that, look where we're at right now. We're losing our relationships with Saudi Arabia. We're losing our relationships with other allies. We're
not losing, we've lost.
They're making a mockery of Joe Biden
And he says he's running again.
Oh, is he really?
He says he's running again.
There's no way.
Yeah. And I would almost said the word I shouldn't have said.
Well,
I said it. And that Nikki Haley, she says she's running now.
Listen, I'm apolitical, so
oh my God.
Hey, bottom line is this.
Remember he has no shot. Remember I was telling you about Seymour. What's his name? He's the one that came out with this bombshell Nord Stream report.
Oh yeah, he made the claim to the U.S.
This investigative journal. All right. So I want to share something with you that he is saying now, and he's literally speaking out. And what he's saying is you have to hold the president to account. And I want to share something with you. In his first interview since publishing his bombshell Nord Stream report, investigative journalist Seymour Hersh said it was not hard. It was not a hard story to find, and that it was obvious that NATO was involved in the Nord Stream attack. And he was astonished at his colleagues who didn't seem to have anyone inside. He said, I saw that the Germans are starting to cope with this story. This is what host Gary Brecher of the Radio War Nerd remarked. He said, would you call what they're doing coping, said Hersh. Throughout all of the scheming, Brecher quoted Hersh's source saying, some working guys in the CIA and the State Department were saying, don't do this. It's stupid and will be a political nightmare if it comes out. And isn't it incredibly stupid, Brecher said. But they didn't see it that way, Hersh said, and they saw the gas coming from Russia. Russia had pipelines supplying gas to Germany very cheap, so much so that some of the German companies were reselling the gas for a profit. Oh, yeah. And Nord Stream was owned by Gazprom, controlled by oligarchs who are respectable of Putin. But 49% were owned by 4 different European companies who were selling gas downstream all over Europe. So you had a tremendous source of cheap gas for Europe. And Germany's a real powerhouse with a Mercedes and a BASF, which is the largest chemical company in the world. So they soak up the gas. And so for fear, was Hersh said, Biden wants this war. Well, it's obvious he wants the war. He's been supplying it. He's been keeping them going. When there's been talk about both, sides talking, and then Biden just keeps fueling it. He keeps putting more fire on the fuel, on the fuel. But Biden wants this war, and he says, "Don't ask me why presidents want war. I think it's good for their ratings." But Biden was very big on showing that we can stand up to Russia with Ukrainian soldiers, and it's good politically in America too. Yeah, he said there were never going to be any boots on the ground from American soldiers, but hell yeah, he'll kill the Ukrainian soldiers. Think about that. And Biden saw that gas as a weapon, Hersh is saying. As long as Russia was selling that much gas, they thought Russia would weaponize it there, and there would be a war. And he says the planning began before the war, is what Hersh said. And speaking at a press conference with German Chancellor Olaf Scholz on February 7, 2022, Biden said, remember, and this is what we were talking about, if Russia invaded Ukraine, there will no longer be a Nord Stream 2. So this is what we were talking about the other day when Biden literally stuck his foot in his mouth and stated there will be no longer a Nord Stream 2.
He literally tattled on himself.
He told on himself. And, well, he's got dementia. They do that kind of stuff, right? He didn't read the line.
I don't know how true that is.
Anyway, so pressed to explain how, Biden doubled down when they asked him how. So Biden doubles down, and he says, I promise you, we will be able to do it. Wow. And then right after that, guess what? Nord Stream pipeline blew up. So on January 27, 2022, State Department under the State for Political Affairs, Victoria Nuland, said that with regard to Nord Stream 2, We continue to have very strong and clear conversations with our German allies, and I want to be clear with you today. If Russia invades Ukraine one way or another, Nord Stream 2 will not move forward. Now, that is the State Department under Secretary of State for Political invades Ukraine one way or another, Nord Stream 2 will not move forward. Now, that's not my words, that's her words. Will not move forward. We've had extensive consultations at every level with our German allies. And I'm not going to get into the specifics here today, but we will work with Germany to ensure that that pipeline does not move forward. Rob, they're just telling on themselves right then and there. Well, let me go a little bit further. So on January 26th, 2022, so remember that one was on the 27th. On January 26, 2022, U.S. State Department spokesman Ned Price told the NPR, I want to be very clear. If Russia invades Ukraine one way or another, Nord Stream 2 will not move forward. I'm not going to get into specifics. We will work with Germany to ensure it does not move forward. That's called a threat.
That's 100% a threat.
That's a threat. And this is what Hirsch said. People are asking me, how did you find this story? And a friend of mine put it this way. You're an expert at deconstructing the obvious. What else was it?
I mean,
and let me tell you something else. So particularly, the German newspapers are very nasty to me, is what Hirsch said. And the New York Times and the Washington Post, they just ignored me. And the mainstream media want Hirsch now to reveal his source's name and get him put into jail, Hirsch said, which would end my career. And I've been doing this for 50 years. I protect people. I have a source. I'm taking heat, but that's my job. But it's their job to understand the business a little better, is what Hirsch said. And they understand the business at the New York Times and the Washington Post, Hirsch said. So the problem is it's all been cheapened because now the New York Times and the Washington Post think an unnamed source can be a press guy, a press secretary that whispers something to them on the side. He says, I don't know. They don't seem to have anyone inside, Hirsch said. So the coverage of the Ukrainian war compared to what I'm hearing from my friends who have access to the information, he says the war I know about is not the war that you're reading about. Very interesting. And in Germany, BASF has now shuttered their factories. They've closed their factories and is talking to China about moving facilities there. In fact, one of the top delegates from China is in Russia today. Yeah, there's some things going. And Hirsch said, crippling the German economy was shooting off your left foot for no reason whatsoever. And Hirsch observed that it's stupidly beyond belief. Is it criminal, he says? It's unquestionably a wonderful degree of stupidity at the White House and on the part of the president. It's just damn stupid, he said. He says you have to ask yourself, what is it with presidents? Why do they like war so much? Maybe because it's politically useful. He says it's colossally bad and inexcusable. And the White House has the New York Times, the Washington Post, MSN, and CNN fronting for them, he says. He said the enemy is Fox News. He says the only reporter that called me from any TV station is Tucker Carlson. He said he's a smart guy, and I wouldn't go on his show or said about Carlson, but he's been dead right on the war in Ukraine. And the Nord Stream story, he said, stunned me because it was such an obvious story, he says. And the Russians didn't do it. And if the Russians didn't do it, which country in NATO did? I was joking with a friend, maybe Macedonia did it. Are they not in NATO? And Secretary of State Antony Blinken, within a moment of the event, he gave a speech in which he talked about stopping Russia from weaponizing oil and gas. And he clearly was among the people who knew what happened. And the New York Times has a lot of terrific reporters, but when it comes to this type of reporting, they underestimate the American people. We're ready to accept the fact the president did this, Hirsch said. You have to hold this president, the president, to account. And Hirsch stands by his story while insisting on protecting his sources, while indicating that there may be related to the pipeline industry. And the one thing government's good at is tracking down people. And he said, this isn't a hard story to find, Hirsch said. There's something called the pipeline industry, which American companies, they build pipelines around the world, and they know what happened. And regarding the media onslaught on him from state-funded media sources like Bellingcat, Hirsch said, I can't care about Bellingcat. Once you get to a certain level with an intelligence community, you get to know who's who. And I can't worry about that. But there are legitimate people who complain. So this is a story that came out by Hirsch, and it's interesting because he's accounting for everything that Biden said, that his administration said. So that's why I'm telling you, and that's why I opened it up this morning with nuclear flying in the air and why you need to be prepared. Because you're going to need to have something that's considered in strength value, something that is real, not that is fake or that can just burn up. And like I said earlier in the beginning of this show, when those nukes start flying, when they've had enough and the nukes start flying, there will be no stock market. And that's why they're rushing to get to this central bank digital currency as well. Rob, you got anything to say?
No. I mean, you hit the hammer.
It's just the truth. And, I just wondered one day, I was envisioning this morning, Rob, I was like, I wonder if we're going to be on here and all of a sudden we're going to hear sirens raid one day and we're going to be like, you hear that? That's going all across the United States now, air sirens. There's planes in the air dropping nukes. Jeez, man.
Could happen.
I mean, look, if they can get a Chinese balloon, and now what they're saying, all these other things are just hogwash. I don't even know anymore. You can't. You know what? Putin hides shit from his people. Our country hides shit from us. We don't know what's going on. We just, how we all rely on? We rely on the news. That's what we rely on. And that's why I like to fact check everything before I state it. But the reason I talked this story today about Hirsch is because exactly I recall on January 26th when the U.S. State Department, all you got to do is go back and Google it and you'll find it when Ned Price told NPR, I want to be very clear, if Russia invades Ukraine one way or another, Nord Stream 2 will not move forward. Guess what? It didn't move forward. And on January 27th, Department Undersecretary of State to Political Affairs, Victoria Nuland, said the same thing with regard to Nord Stream 2. We continue to have very strong and clear conversations with our German allies, and if Russia invades Ukraine one way or another, it's almost like it's written out for them. Their handlers, their writers, are writing their script for them. Just like I write mine down. So because I can't remember all this stuff off the top of my head. And then you had Biden who said that, conflict, that, he literally stated that himself, that it was not moving forward. So enough said. 800-753-8534. If you don't want to talk to those call centers, which I wouldn't, you can give us a call direct. if you run across this, 800-753-8534 or 380-5485. Rob, plug yours in.
Yeah, 213-466-1283.
Or just go to the website, UnitedGoldGroup.com. Google it. We've got an A+ Better Business Bureau rating. We're not only rated, we're accredited with the Better Business Bureau. We do a lot of things that these other companies don't do. Be careful of the scam companies out there. We ran across one yesterday called Pinnacle, and they are out there literally scamming people. They've got different addresses. They say they're accredited by the BBB. I called yesterday. They're not. They're not accredited by the BBB whatsoever. Not only that, they show that they're in Beverly Hills, and then they have an office that they show they're in Sherman Oaks. It's the one in Sherman Oaks is Regis. It's like a fly-by, like if you want to open up a fly-by-night company and you want to just go in there, rent a space for a day or two, you can do that. You ring their phone numbers, it rings and rings, and no friendly voice on the end stating what company you've called or anything like that. So stay away from these type of companies. That company, by the way, is called Pinnacle Gold Group, I think it's called. A guy by the name of Jonathan Devereaux, who is actually there. And
his real name's Jonathan Moy.
Yeah, Jonathan Moy. And we know him because he used to work for our company, and we fired him because of things that he was saying and fraud. And one thing about this industry, you have to be very compliant. And that's one thing that we are. And that's why we're not out to take your entire retirement account like these guys are. In fact, this guy was offering, listen to this, $90,000, and he was going to give him $15,000 in free silver. Well, we do not give away free money. There's no way. No, you'd have to jack up the price. Think about it. Common sense would tell you, whether you're an engineer, an insurance salesman, or whatever, common sense will tell you that if a bar of silver, let's say kilo of silver is $892 for a kilo, a brick of silver, which is like 33 ounces, something like that, 32 in some ounces, almost 33. You think about it, and you're giving it to them at a wholesale price. First of all, how can you afford to give them $15,000 in free silver? It's not possible. So what they have to do is instead of that bar being, say, $892, it's now $1,200, right? Or more, because they have to cover. And a lot of these guys, what they do is they put, oh my God, anywhere from 100% or more premiums on it. So call somebody that's a professional like Rob and I that can actually give you the exact price, and we'll make sure that you're not taken by these scam men out there.
The bottom line is this: if a company is going to give you 10 to 15 grand in free money, and you're investing, let's say $100 grand, expect what you're going to receive in the metals to be at least 35,000 or 40,000 in metals. Yeah. Because you got to think about what
they're going to take more than half of your account.
I mean, it's a business. You got to think about what the cost of what the cost is on the product. Then you have to take into account the company's overhead, and then you have to take into account, shipping and transactional fees that are associated with that. So yeah, I mean, invest $100 grand, expect 35 to 40 grand.
I would be heartbroken.
In a receivable product. Yeah.
Not with us.
Well, not with us. I'm just saying with companies like
Pinnacle.
Yeah.
I would be brokenhearted if I knew I had let's say I had all the money I had in my retirement, and all it was $100,000.
Yeah.
And I wanted to put it into precious metals because I got other monies coming in that I can live off of. But now I have it in my retirement account, and I wake up the next morning, and instead of it being 100,000, it's now 35 or 40. Is that what you're saying?
Happens all the time.
Yeah, I know. That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
And that's what this company, by the way, and I'm warning you out there now, Pinnacle Gold Group. I don't care. Those guys out there, I know what they're doing, and we're going to report anybody like this out there that's doing these sort of things because it's not good for our industry.
Yep.